While the practice of sex trafficking has been around for thousands of years, it has become increasingly prevalent in the United States. Human trafficking in the United States is primarily a source, transit, and destination of persons of debt, bondage, forced labor, and forced prostitution. Trafficking is one of the fastest growing organized crimes in the nation. There are 50,000 women and children who are trafficked annually in the United States. 14 to 17,000 of them, people worldwide, are trafficked into the United States annually. 3 out of every 1,000 people worldwide are forced into labor, and 1.5 of them are in the United States. Human trafficking victims have been identified in all 50 states, including Washington, D.C. Human trafficking victims do not just stay in cities. Human trafficking can be found in rural areas and suburbs. Some victims are held behind locked doors, while others are in plain view. Traffickers are very cunning in how they recruit their individuals, finding their vulnerabilities and making the work sound like a luxurious or romantic opportunity. The commonality among trafficking victims is some sort of vulnerability. In order to put an end to human trafficking, the United States government must spread awareness through media ad campaigns, educating humans, creating task force across the United States. Sex traffickers use many forms to force women, children, and men to have sex against their will. There are many factors that drive human trafficking. The federal government must take action, and media is one of the biggest roles in educating and informing the public. Human trafficking is a crime that preys on society's most vulnerable people. The driving factors for the human trafficking business are that it is low risk and high profits. They use debt, bondage, the promise of a better life, high-paying jobs, violence, and threats. Federal law states that any minor under the age of 18 induced into commercial sex activity is a victim of sex trafficking. Sex trade is the business of commercial sex exploitation that is exchanged for food, shelter, drugs, transportation, and money. Sex trade is a billion-dollar business. Human trafficking spans all demographics. Whether you are male, female, black, white, sexual orientation can be a location to prey sex trafficking, but there are certain groups that are frequently targeted by traffickers. In order to reduce and abolish human trafficking, the federal government must take action. Since the early 1900s, there have been a political movement to combat human trafficking. While there were international laws that were set in the early 1990s, the first U.S. law was the Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000. The Bush administration began by setting up the Justice Department task force and spent millions on this effort. The federal government has created intervention programs such as the Blue Campaign. And the Blue Campaign forces people to learn about human trafficking, and it includes public awareness and victim assistance. The Blue Campaign references the global anti-human trafficking symbols, the blue heart and the blue blindfold, along with the blue line that represents law enforcement. This campaign works with federal government colleagues, foreign government, and all levels of law enforcement. The Blue Campaign is now in its 5th year and is regulated by the Department of Homeland Security. In the year 2000, the Violence Protection Act was passed, and this act amends the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961 to require the Secretary of State to include as a part of required reports on human rights and development assistance and human rights and security assistance. The most recent signed bill is the Justice for Victims of Trafficking Act of 2015, and it will require that the Department of Homeland Security personnel receive training on how to deter, detect, and report instances on human trafficking. The media plays a vital role in educating people on how to recognize human trafficking and how to seek assistance. The month of January has been designated as the Human Trafficking Awareness Month to raise awareness for this cause. The U.S. Department of Education initiated a campaign for Human Trafficking Awareness Month titled #WhatWoulDIMiss. Since minors and young adults are targeted for sex trafficking, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and other social media sources are provided to educate assistance. While media awareness efforts are high, there is another battle that needs to be fought, and that is sex trafficking around major sporting events. The Texas Attorney General made a shocking statement in 2011 announcing that the Super Bowl is the single largest human trafficking occurrence in the United States. A former sex trafficking victim, Greenlee, was expected to sleep anywhere between 25 to 50 men per day during the Super Bowl event. In order to put an end to human trafficking, the United States government must spread awareness through media ad campaigns, educating the public, especially women and children, and creating task force across the United States to spot and catch these traffickers. The United States has made great strides in their efforts to combat human trafficking, and unfortunately, according to statistics, there's much work that still needs to be done. The media continues to assist the efforts by raising awareness.